Alright, be a response to Professor Anton, I guess Anticontivod, sort of, kind of, but just on this general subject and what's being argued here, and how it's being argued, and the accusations being made, and, then I just don't, there's no credibility, I don't think, in what's being said. It's just wrong. I mean, I can only testify to my own character, and, explain that guilt isn't a problem. Guilt, I know what the sensation is, and I haven't felt too much of it in my existence, to tell you the truth. I've certainly done some stupid things and felt stupid for doing the stupid things and hurting somebody or humiliating somebody or whatever, and felt guilty, and then did the best I could to resolve the problem. That was it. But I certainly have never felt guilt for the state of the world or the condition of the world, because I have voted against it reliably from the very day I was hatched. I was saying, no, let's just hit the pause button and let's fix this thing. So there's nothing, guilt is not motivating me. But I will say that I'm probably motivated, that I still have a hunger for pride and integrity. I still have a hunger for emotions that would be like the opposite of, or the converse to, by some people's description. And so that still motivates me. Those things I want to have. I think the argument here is that there's some people who have, I see futility in the system. They see futility in existence, and that's a huge difference in their own existence, in their personal existence. They think they can't win this war, and so they've just calculated, how do I get my cut? They're very bad soldiers, in the sense they've given up on the function of the battle, the war. They see no purpose in it, and so all they've really started to become is, how can I engineer my self-interest in this arena? They've become rapists and pillagers, and separate themselves from what would still be my argument of being a good soldier. They've lost their discipline, and I would say that's fine. You want to sit there and play hopscotch in the middle of the battlefield, go ahead. But when you're trying to drag other people into your futility, into your stupidity, that's where I would draw the line. Okay? I mean, you want to give up, you want to surrender, that's your business. But don't be spreading that corruption. All right. So I'm already not being as delicate as I wanted to be. This is really, I'm going to use complex and nuanced metaphors. And it has to be done carefully, and I'm probably not going to do it careful enough. So if we metaphor this to be Anticontivod, in spite of his supporters, they don't even understand this guy anyway. He concedes every bit of my argument. He just doesn't think the war can be won. He doesn't think that the cause and the function that is this conflict between, even death itself, these bits of life that have no continuity, that don't fit, that are abhorrent to the nature of the beast, that these things can't be defeated. So if you think of the thing as that, the fact that life is imperfect. So let's just take the imperfection. Let's just call it any imperfection, and let's build a Goliath out of that, a monster. And say that this is life. Life is dealing with this monster. Okay? And the game is, so we're already at war from birth, in the sense that there's things that are going to be, we're going to be in conflict with. We're going to be in conflict with the cruelty, the uncontrollability, the lack of deserve having anything to do with it, the lack of consent, the fact that life is just kind of imposing and suffocating, in the sense of how weak it makes us to control it. And so that lack of control, just instill that into this monster. So yes, everybody's going to describe the Goliath, taller, fatter, more teeth, less teeth, laser vision, all kinds of, weapons, and the monster can be bigger or smaller, um, depending on how you understand. Okay, so obviously for me it's a big monster because, yes, all of sentient life that is abused is caught up in this Goliath. This Goliath, the menace of the Goliath, whether we're describing the Goliath itself or how much damage the Goliath does, right? Some people see, oh, look, it makes people homeless, or oh, look, it makes people alcoholic. Well, and I'm also going to see, and it pushes birds out of the nest, and it, cruelly kills lion cubs, and it, there's my Goliath is a grand, horrible monster. Okay, it's a mess that this Goliath is making. And so certainly I have the advantage of being facing the monster, saying, no, surrender really isn't an option. I mean, pretending that there's no fight to fight is just really not an option. There's no way you're going to distract me enough with some sort of personal bullshit that I'm not going to be aware of Goliath being out there. And so Antikondavad's basically saying, yes, everybody's trying to impose the soldier suit on you. Everybody's telling you that this is life, and you have to deal with the Goliath. And he's basically just arguing, no, if you're sneaky about it, okay, you can weasel through your life, and you don't even have to see Goliath, you don't have to encounter Goliath, and you can play hopscotch and have a drink and smoke cigarettes and do all kinds of things and have a nice, pleasant, wonderful life, and you don't have to recognize the existence of the monster. You can avoid it and evade it, and that's, like I said, I don't see anything honorable in that, and it's certainly not going to satisfy my desire to, when it's all said and done, pridefully sing a good song. Because I don't see any way you can derive pride in this attitude that I'll let the other soldiers fight the fight because I think they're just being stupid. I'll rationalize my excuses and I'll just walk away. I just don't see anything. I can't derive value in that. I personally survived bullshit. Okay, it just doesn't work. Yeah, I just get on the lifeboat. There's too many people on the lifeboat. Okay, I'll just throw some off. And then, when there's not too many people, well, I'll just throw the rest off anyway. Because who the fuck cares, right? They're not me. I mean, it just doesn't... I can't make any logical sense out of that. Alright, so the other part of this Goliath monster. So here we're facing the monster. And some people are saying, we can reform the monster. Yeah, we can just knock off the bad edges. We can defeat Goliath in these little ways. We can force his surrender or something, or we can, they see a potential for victory in some sort of attrition. If we just keep feeding the Goliath, eventually he'll eat too much. He'll eat too many of us and die of human poisoning or something. It's just totally, it's a strategy, but it's a strategy I would say logically has no validity. So my argument would be that those are soldiers being just ground up for nothing. These silly little, let's pass a bullying law, that'll solve the world's problem. Crazy stuff. Let's kick the economic can down the road another day, and so somehow we're going to get out of this debt problem by, let's just borrow some more money. Let's get another credit card and put our credit card bill on our credit card. That kind of crap. I mean, just totally futile, stupid solutions that will not solve the fundamental problem of the monster. And so I'm arguing that, look, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to be a good soldier. Unlike most people who are just, okay, I've been drafted, everybody else is doing it, we're supposed to do this do-gooder thing, we're supposed to be good little humans, we're supposed to try, blah, 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 but their heart really isn't in it. They're not gladiators, okay? So, yeah, and so I'm showing up and I'm saying, I'm going to do this professionally, okay? I'm a soldier, all right? And I understand how you win war, how you win battles, and I understand that you've got to engineer a strategy. You can't face the monster with, I'm just going to sit there and, you know, swear at it, or you know, I'm going to, you know, wave my fly swatter at it, or some kind of bullshit. You've got to have a strategy, something realistic about how you can defeat this thing, how you can trap this thing, how you can, where's the source of its power, all that kind of stuff. And so the argument here is that, okay, this is a huge problem. This is a Goliath, and you're just a little David. And you know, they're coming up with a strategy, a way of understanding the mechanism of this conflict. And so now we have to kind of bend the abstraction and kind of, you know, slide it back into a reality. But you can, through fighting with the truth, fighting with the monster, looking at the monster hard, you can see its workings. You can see what keeps it standing. You can see what it feeds on. And what it feeds on is your desire. That's what people don't understand. It's feeding on your energy. The energy you put into it. The recklessness and the sloppiness you put into it. The monster isn't really the monster. The monster is inside of you. The monster is your ambition, your desire, your need to play a game from the beginning, to initiate the conflict. And that's in the very nature of life, because life has a bad origin. It's a replicating molecule. It's replication for the sake of replication, and the very thing that gives it integrity in terms of creating something nuanced and evolved is made out of the war, is made out of huge amounts of attrition, huge amounts of destruction. That's how it creates. It destroys 1,000,000 to create a 1. To make 1 improvement in the house, it burned down 1,000 houses. It created, you know, like if it was a laboratory that invented cures for disease. Well, for every cure it creates, it lets loose 1,000,000 viruses that do malicious damage. That's sort of the mechanism that we're stuck in. And so you understand that it's the mechanism that's the problem. It's that this whole Buddhist kind of ideology of just recognizing that, yeah, that the problem is in your need. Your need is the engine for Goliath. He feeds on your need. The more you need, the more he's going to eat. And so you understand that really the only way to defeat the Goliath is to defeat your need, is to turn the need off and be done with it. I guess the metaphor would be is that, yes, Goliath is just a manifestation, the shadow. Goliath is the shadow we cast in the universe. And the universe doesn't give us any option not to cast the shadow. And the shadow becomes a bigger black, a bigger entity than the thing casting it. And that's just the unfortunate fact of nuclear physics. And there's nothing you can do about that. But anyway, but that's the war. The war is to end all war. That's the last gladiator. That's his mission. To stop the war. To stop war. It's a war against war. You know. Anyway, so that's a context I want to put this in. So anyway, again, this guilt thing is just so obnoxious. There's nothing in my personal character driven by this notion of guilt. It's an emotion I have absolutely distaste for. I don't even like when I feel it, because I generally say to myself, you're overreacting. I mean, you really didn't do anything all that wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I say this emotion shouldn't be driving my behavior. So it's just stupid, I think. And I don't think Antikontavat has given us any example where the guilt-ridden have blighted the world. I think the opposite is quite obviously true. People who are immune to guilt are the ones who have blighted the world. So it just seems to me a huge rationalization for his own defeatism. He's basically conceded he can't win the war, he can't fight the monster, there is no way to win, and so again he's just decided that he's going to just steal as much tasty cake as he can and fuck everybody else, period. Fuck the victims, fuck the other soldiers, fuck everything. except him. And it's, you know, I see huge failure, obviously, in that dishonest retreat. If you're going to surrender, then surrender honestly. Yeah, so he's just seeing the war as an opportunity. He's saying, look, there's nothing here. The mission statement sucks, so let's just figure out a way to have fun. And that's it. So he's just a bad soldier, a rotten human being. Yeah, sorry, but it's just the truth. Alright, so it's back to the Goliath metaphor. And so I don't really want to bring in religious things, but you could go with like the Jesus metaphor, right, where Jesus talks about, well, look at the birds, they don't have any this or that or the other thing, and God seems to take care of them just fine. But how does God take care of the birds, right? So then you just have to start thinking about it, and you say, well, yeah, the reason why birds look so good, they look so clean and strong and healthy, is because they kill the weak and the meek and the vulnerable. Right? They shove them right the fuck out of the nest. The cruelty is decisive and complete right from the start. So only the Uba birds survive. So in a way, Jesus was being very nihilistic, very Nietzschean, in the sense that it's just saying, yeah, well, fuck the weak, fuck anybody who has bad luck, and just make the fucking decisive. So don't let them eke out an existence. So you gotta understand, like, and when Jesus said the poor will be with you always, the poor in his time were substantially the disabled and the broken, the widows, the orphans. Okay, so it was the poor had a lot more integrity in terms of being fairly in the condition they were in. Like they didn't really have a choice. And there wasn't any like flaw in their behavior that led to their poverty. Okay, they did do the right thing, and they were getting horribly squished, and so that makes it even more insidious in a way, because the poor were so legitimate, and they were, like I said, just feeding off. They were just kept alive, you know, maintained in the cruelest kind of subsistence. So it's like shoving the birds out of the nest, you know, but giving them a day's ration and giving them slippers to wear on their feet so they could be walkers instead of flyers. And you know, if the mechanism was like that, if you looked out in nature and you could see all the disabled and the harmed and the limping, you know, the animal lepers, so to speak, you might not have much reverence for nature. But the fact that it killed them so young and so quickly and so decisively gives you the illusion that it's all balanced and pretty and wonderful. I mean, they squish the victims. The Goliath is squishing the natural victims so completely that there's just a little greasy stain. And you can just make up shit about what that is. You know, where if the corpse is more lumpy and there's flesh exposed and you can see it. You can walk the street and see the guy living in the cardboard box. Yeah, well then it's a little more real. The fact that Goliath was here is a little more real when you can see the victims. They're still there, their corpses are still laying on the ground. And so that's a different reality. Okay, so and again, so there's people who are just going to acquiesce that like again, this it's an endless war, a war we can't win. That's all Anaconda's saying. You can never have the last war, and you can't win this battle, you can't win this war, and so the only sensible thing to do is not fight. Okay, it's just completely Borg acquiesce, and just be a good victim. And the best way to be a good victim is pretend you're not going to be a victim. Just ignore the fact that Goliath will come stomping in your house someday and squish you like a bug. And so he's just basically saying, if it happens, it happens. Worrying about it doesn't do any good, so I'm just going to have delusions and play. I'll be a silly person, I'll be a Kramer, and just take every moment like there's no Goliath stomping around on Earth. And it's just, to me, what do you want me to say? It's a huge cop-out. And as a soldier, I find it disgusting. It's revolting. I'd like to run them through. I mean, it's almost like the good soldiers should just say, geez, I mean, the cowards, the guys running away, the pussies, yeah, you just want to fucking cut their legs off. They're goddamn cunts. Yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, who needs, there's just this corruption. They're just a corruption, you know. They're the weakness in your army. You know, even in that was sort of a truism, in the old days in war. You know, it's like half the soldiers were motivated and the other half were completely unmotivated. And so you'd have, when the time came, the rubber was going to meet the road, sometimes half your fucking army would be running the wrong way. And, this makes strategy a little difficult when you can't count on the guy next to you. When you can't count on him to be there when we're going to do the whatever maneuver, you're going to do your Jedi thing, and, Solo doesn't show up to take out Vader for you, yeah, then you're doomed to failure. Yeah, okay, I pulled that metaphor out of my ass, but it fits. All right, I mean, you can't do this as an individual. We have to do this as an army. And if my goddamn army's gonna pussy out, yeah, then fuck. Then I am doomed to failure. So anyway, so this is about being a disciplined soldier. This is about recognizing the fact that we are in a war against the facts of life. The facts of life suck. It's a nasty motherfucker. People just keep griping that, my final solution isn't the solution. Whatever, fine. I mean, I metaphored it to different things. There's a big pile of sewage, okay, and it's invading, it's encroaching, it's about ready to suffocate the world in a way, right? Our own sewage is coming back to suffocate us. And you can bail it, you can sweep it, you can do all kinds of ways of dealing with it. And I'm just going to argue the simplest thing to do is turn off the fucking valve that's spewing the shit. And you can't understand that? Well, I'm sorry for you. But frankly, there's absolutely no disadvantage to just turning the valve off. That's just your perception. You think you can't live without the sewage. And guess what? You can. You can live without everything floating in it, every bit of it. It's just a perception in your head. Just as you don't miss the Martians. The non-existent Martians do not blight your existence. You do not spend your day going, woe is me, there's no Martians in the universe. And the same is true for Earthlings. You are infinitely unmissable. And you just got to get over yourself and realize that and say, yeah, the simplest solution is just to turn this sewage fucking making machine off. Alright, anyway. So these are crappy soldiers, no discipline, no pride. So that's what they're lacking, okay? And all this guilt talk is just their rationalization for their lack of pride. Self-respect. I have way too much self-respect to waste my life in guilt or some other silly emotion. Alright, self-interest versus understanding the fact that the only road to Tipperary is through Goliath's nuts. Okay? I mean, he goes down or you're really futile. I mean, this is the only game in town. You got to win this war. You got to fight this war. And if you're not going to fight it, you're just you're retarded. You're just a useless, unfunctional waste of space. Yeah. So not understanding the enemy. That's how I describe. You're just not understanding the enemy. You're not understanding what it feeds on and how it feeds. Okay, because you have a delusion that the enemy is some silly thing like guilt or an emotion or even selfishness, but it's not. Okay, the enemy is your hunger. Okay, and everything that exists that's bad is a consequence of that insatiable hunger. It's the fundamental corruption of purpose and function. So the corruption is in your perception of purpose and function. You are pretending that you have some other purpose than the native origins of life on this planet, replication for the sake of replication, and that the function is just to create gladiators that beat the shit out of each other to climb the silly survival hill and say, I'm cool. And that truth, that that's all you're made out of, is a shitty purpose and a shitty function. You got that wrong. You got no logical hope of identifying what you're really fighting. And you have no hope of fighting it effectively when you don't understand what the monster is. Alright. Okay, it's just, this is good. I like this little analogy. But these people who want to reclamate life, they say we can fix it. We can fix it. We can do it. You know, it's nice that they're in the game and they're trying to be soldiers, but I metaphor that to trying to make a blender into a child-safe toy. There's just no fucking way. You're not going to make a blender into a child-safe toy. It's just not going to happen. And you're fooling yourself if you think there's some way you can conform this mechanism that feeds on deprivation, that feeds on installing the negative before you can realize a positive. It's broken at its core. That's why Goliath exists. Goliath is a representation of the broken core, the broken function, the very mechanism. Again, it's the cast shadow. It's the opposite equal reaction. And you can't break that physics. You can't create this thing called life without creating this thing called death and deprivation. Okay, so let's see what else I wrote. Act out of pride, not guilt. Okay, again, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of respect for pride either as an emotion, but I'm just saying if anything's going to be argued, I'd rather people act out of a hunger for pride, okay, than a fear of guilt. And ideally, you should act out of understanding. You should just be a good soldier. You should just say, what's the job here? Okay, let's find a strategy to take this thing down. And as I've just pointed out, you do that by understanding the thing you're fighting. And when you really start dissecting Goliath, you're going to see your own face. You're going to see that the monster is you. Alright, guilt is self-interest. Yeah, the very thing called bad. Well, something like that. But anyway, you know, I don't want people to act out of a self-interest. I don't want them to act out of I have to expunge my guilt. I mean, fuck that. That's not what soldiers do, okay? I don't want soldiers acting out of guilt, right? I want soldiers who understand the mission and understand why the discipline is required and what, you know, and how to effectively win the war. And you do that by fighting honorably, doing your best. So again, I'll defend doing your best, making the best utility out of yourself, trying to find the best path for yourself. Yeah, not for your benefit, but to make yourself into the most effective sword, to make you capable of, you know, knocking the feet from under the Goliath. So anyway, I think I've done my job here. It's not, you know, it's about half as good as I was hoping for. But like I said, I am using a lot of metaphors here, and people are just going to pick that shit to pieces. But I think if you really listen to what I'm saying, you'd understand that the only difference between me and Anaconavad is the fact that I haven't given up on the war. I think the war can be won. And he's conceded it can't be, and he's satisfied, okay, to play on the battlefield. Where I would say, if I'm going to concede defeat, yes, you know, he's even said it: either get busy dying or get busy living. Well, frankly, if I thought it was a lost cause, I'd rather do like, I don't know, the Japanese on Iwo Jima, you know, and I'll put a bullet in my own head. Long before I'll find satisfaction in playing hopscotch and just ignoring the truth. Yeah. Minimizing, you know, pretending the Holocaust never happened because everybody's dead. Yeah. No, I'll put a bullet in my head before I do that. Okay. So anyway, there. It is what it is.